Commander Vethril had served in the Galactic Patrol for 30 years. He had seen pirates, smugglers, and warships from a dozen different species. But the words on his screen made his blood run cold. Unidentified warship detected. Contact report, human vessel. Weapons online. He stood from his command chair and walked toward the main viewing screen. Outside, the stars of the disputed corridor stretched endlessly into the darkness. This region of space was known for trouble. Pirates hunted here. Smugglers hid here. And now, apparently humans had come here too. "Show me the contact," Vethril ordered. The screen changed to display a tactical readout. A single vessel sat motionless in the void, roughly 200,000 kilometers away. It was large. Heavy cruiser class, according to the computer. Its hull was dark gray and covered in angular plates designed to deflect enemy fire. But what concerned Vethril most was the energy signature coming from its weapons systems. They were fully powered and ready to fire. "Have they responded to our hails?" he asked his communications officer. A young female named Tessariel shook her head. "No, Commander. We have sent 17 messages on all standard frequencies. The human ship has not responded to any of them." Vethril felt the tension on his bridge increase. His crew was afraid, and he could not blame them. Humans were strange creatures. They had only made contact with the galactic community 80 years ago. And in that time, they had earned a reputation for being unpredictable. They smiled when they were angry. They laughed when they were sad. They refused to share information about their military capabilities. And now one of their warships sat in neutral space, with its weapons hot and its communications silent. "What is it doing here?" Vethril muttered to himself. His second-in-command, Officer Kiranis, stepped forward. She was older than Vethril and had served even longer. Her scales were gray with age, but her eyes were sharp. "It does not matter what it is doing here, Commander. Humans have no treaty rights in this sector. Their weapons are active. They are ignoring our hails. We should destroy them before they destroy us." Vethril considered her words. By galactic law, she was correct. An unidentified warship with active weapons that refuse communication could be treated as a hostile contact. He had the authority to order an attack. His patrol fleet consisted of 3 vessels, and together they carried enough firepower to reduce the human ship to scrap metal. But something held him back. Why would they broadcast their weapon signature so openly? He asked. If they wanted to attack us, they would run silent. They would hide their power until the last moment. Instead, they are practically announcing their presence to everyone in the sector. Kiranis made a sound of frustration. "Humans do not think like us, Commander. Their logic is alien. Perhaps they are arrogant. Perhaps they believe one ship can defeat 3. Perhaps they are simply insane. Or perhaps," Vethril said slowly, "they are not interested in us at all." He studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ship was not facing his fleet. Its bow was pointed toward a region of space beyond his sensor range, toward a dense nebula that blocked long-range scans. The ship appeared to be waiting for something. "Increase sensor power," Vethril ordered. "I want to see what is on the other side of that nebula." The sensor officer worked quickly at his console. The display flickered and shifted as the ship's sensors pushed deeper into space. For several long moments, there was nothing. Then the screen lit up with new contacts. Vethril felt his stomach drop. Dozens of small vessels were emerging from the nebula. They were traveling in a loose formation, moving as fast as their engines could carry them. Most of them were civilian craft. Some were so old and damaged that they barely looked capable of flight. They were fleeing from something, and behind them 3 larger ships were giving chase. These vessels broadcast pirate identification codes. "The human ship is moving," Tessariel reported. Her voice was tense. "It is positioning itself between the fleeing vessels and the pirates." Vethril watched the display in silence. The picture was becoming clear now. The human warship was not here to attack anyone. It was here to protect someone. But who were these refugees? And why would humans risk conflict in foreign space to defend them? "Identify those civilian vessels," he ordered. The computer worked for several seconds. When the results appeared, Vethril felt a chill run down his spine. The refugees were Velkari. He knew that name. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. 30 years ago, the Velkari had lost a border war against the Korith hegemony. The defeat had been total. Their fleet was destroyed. Their colonies were occupied. And when they appealed to the Galactic Council for help, the Council had refused. The Velkari were declared a non-aligned species. They were stripped of all protections under galactic law. They were abandoned to die. And now, 3 decades later, they were being hunted like animals by pirates who knew that killing them carried no legal consequences. Commander Kirinus said urgently, "We cannot get involved in this. The Velkari are condemned. Anyone who helps them faces severe penalties. We must withdraw and report this to command." Vethril did not respond. He was watching the human ship as it completed its positioning maneuver. It now stood directly in the path of the pirate vessels. Its weapons were aimed. Its shields were raised. It was a wall of metal and fire standing between the hunters and their prey. The communication console suddenly activated. A voice filled the bridge, and Vethril realized the human ship had finally broken its silence. But it was not speaking to him. It was broadcasting on an open channel that anyone could hear. "Sanctuary Convoy, this is the UN's vigil. Form up behind us. We have got you." The words were calm and steady. There was no fear in them. No hesitation. Only quiet certainty. Vethril watched as the refugee vessels changed course, moving toward the human ship like frightened children running to a parent. The vigil did not move. It simply waited, standing guard over those it had chosen to protect. The pirates hailed the human vessel. Their message was harsh and demanding. They claimed the Velkari had bounties on their heads. They insisted the humans had no legal authority in this region. They ordered the vigil to stand aside or face destruction. The human captain's response came without delay. "These people are under Earth's protection. You have 60 seconds to alter course." Silence followed. Vethril found himself holding his breath. The pirates outnumbered the human ship. Logic said they would attack. Greed said they would attack. Every rule of this cruel galaxy said they would attack. 50 seconds passed. Then 60. The pirates did not alter course. Vethril watched the display as the UN's vigil opened fire. The battle lasted less than 40 seconds. The human ship moved with impossible speed and precision. Its weapons struck the pirate vessels in exactly the right places to disable them without destroying them. When the firing stopped, all 3 pirate ships were drifting powerless in space. Their crews were alive but helpless. Kirinus stared at the screen in shock. That is not possible. No ship should be able to move like that. No weapons should be that accurate. Vethril said nothing. He was beginning to understand that. Everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. The communication console activated once more. This time, the human captain was speaking directly to the patrol fleet. His voice was the same as before, calm, certain, unafraid. "Galactic Patrol, you have seen what you have seen. We are leaving now. I would recommend you let us out." The transmission ended. The UN's vigil began to move, leading its convoy of refugees toward the distant safety of human space. And Commander Vethril faced a choice that would change everything. What would he tell the Council? Commander Vethril made his choice. He let the human ship go. He watched as the UN's vigil escorted its convoy of refugees into the darkness of space, and he did not fire a single shot. His second-in-command, Kirinus, called him a fool. She said he was throwing away his career. She said the Council would punish him for allowing humans to embarrass the Galactic Patrol. Perhaps she was right, but Vethril could not bring himself to attack a ship that had just saved 47 vessels full of innocent people. He filed his report the moment he returned to port. He described everything he had witnessed. The refugees, the pirates, the impossible speed of the human warship, the calm voice of its captain. He held nothing back, because he knew that secrets had a way of becoming lies. And lies had a way of destroying careers faster than truth ever could. The response came within hours. Vethril was ordered to appear before the Galactic Security Council to give testimony in person. A special session had been called. Representatives from every major power would be in attendance. The humans had been summoned as well. When Vethril arrived at the council chamber, he was struck by the tension in the air. The massive circular room was filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Some were shouting. Others sat in cold silence, but all of them were focused on the same thing. The humans had been caught. Vethril took his place at the witness stand and waited. A few minutes later, the human delegation entered the chamber. They were led by a woman named Ambassador Chen. She was small by human standards, with gray hair and calm eyes. She walked to her designated position and stood there without speaking, waiting for the proceedings to begin. The council chairman, a massive creature from the Korath hegemony, called the session to order. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. We are here to address a serious breach of galactic law. Evidence has been presented that human vessels have been operating illegally in neutral space. They have been harboring members of a condemned species. They've engaged in combat without authorization. And they have concealed military capabilities that pose a potential threat to galactic security. He turned his gaze toward Ambassador Chen. The human delegation will explain themselves. Chen stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the chamber. What would you like to know? Start with the truth, the chairman demanded. How long have your people been running these refugee convoys? 9 years, Chen answered without hesitation. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. 9 years. The humans had been doing this for nearly a decade, right under the council's nose. You admit this openly? The chairman asked. I do. And you knew that your actions violated multiple territorial agreements? I did. And you knew that harboring Velkari refugees was a criminal offense under galactic law? I knew that the law said so, yes. The chairman leaned forward. His eyes were filled with anger. Then why? Why would your species risk everything for people who are not your own? What could you possibly gain from protecting a condemned race? Ambassador Chen was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was no longer calm. It was heavy with something that Vethril could only describe as sorrow. 30 years ago, the Velkari lost a war. They were not evil. They were not criminals. They simply lost. And because they lost, this council decided that they no longer deserved protection. You stripped them of their rights. You removed them from every trade agreement. You declared that anyone who harmed them would face no consequences. She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who quickly looked away. Do you know what happened after that? Pirates realized the Velkari were easy targets. Slavers realized no one would come looking for missing Velkari. Criminal organizations realized they could do anything they wanted to these people, and the galaxy would simply look the other way. 6 billion souls were condemned to slow death by starvation, violence, and despair. Not because they committed any crime, but because it was politically convenient. The chamber was silent now. No one shouted. No one moved. 9 years ago, Chen continued, a human cargo captain stumbled across a Velkari colony. They were starving. Their children were sick. They had no medicine, no supplies, no hope. That captain broke every regulation in the book to bring them food. And when he returned to Earth, he told everyone what he had seen. She took a deep breath. We could not ignore it. We could not look at these people and pretend they did not exist. So we started sending supplies. Quietly at first. Small ships carrying food and medicine. Volunteers who wanted to help. Doctors who learned the Velkari language just so they could treat their patients properly. And the warships. The chairman interrupted. When did those begin? When the pirates figured out what we were doing, Chen replied, they started hunting our convoys. Killing our people. So yes, we built warships. We trained crews. We armed ourselves to protect those who could not protect themselves. A delegate from one of the minor powers stood up. This is outrageous. You have no right to unilaterally decide which species deserves protection. The council makes those decisions. Chen turned to face him. Her expression did not change, but her words cut like blades. Then the council decided wrong. Chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded that the humans be expelled from galactic trade. Others called for military action. The chairman struggled to restore order. When the noise finally died down, a delegate from the Koroth hegemony spoke. His voice was cold and dangerous. The human delegation will face consequences for these violations. We propose an immediate economic blockade of all human territories until the Velkar refugees are surrendered to proper authorities. Bethril felt his heart sink. A blockade would cripple human trade. It would starve their outer colonies. It was a declaration of war in everything but name. Ambassador Chen listened to the proposal without flinching. When she responded, her voice was steady. You can try, but I would encourage you to ask yourselves something first. She paused and looked directly at the Koroth delegate. If humans would risk war to protect a species we have never met, what do you think we would do for each other? The question hung in the air like a challenge. And more importantly, Chen added, what does it say about this council that protecting refugees is considered a crime? No one answered. No one could. The chairman called for a vote on the blockade proposal. Hands began to rise across the chamber. Bethril counted them with growing dread. The major powers were united. The humans would be crushed. But before the vote could be completed, something unexpected happened. A junior diplomat from a small species called the Rethany stood up. She was young and clearly nervous, but her voice did not shake when she spoke. I invoke the right of testimony. Under Section 47 of the Council Charter, any affected party may speak before a final vote is cast. I call for testimony from the Velkari themselves. Silence fell over the chamber. The chairman stared at her. The Velkari are a condemned species. They have no standing before this council. Section 47 makes no exceptions, the young diplomat replied. Any affected party, the Velkari, are certainly affected. Unless the chairman wishes to argue that galactic law does not apply to this chamber. Bethril watched as the chairman struggled to find a response. The young diplomat had trapped him perfectly. If he refused the testimony, he would be admitting that the council did not follow its own rules. If he allowed it, the Velkari would have a chance to speak. Finally, the chairman nodded. Very well. The council will hear testimony from a Velkari representative. We will reconvene in 3 days. Session ended. Delegates filed out of the chamber, whispering among themselves. Bethril remained in his seat, his mind racing. The Valkyrie would speak. After 30 years of silence, they would finally have a voice. And somehow, Bethril knew that nothing would ever be the same. Her name was Saravel, and she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. 30 years ago. She was a child of 7 when her world fell. She remembered the day clearly. The sky had turned red with fire. Ships burned in orbit like falling stars. Her mother had held her close and whispered that everything would be fine. Even though they both knew it was a lie. The Valkyrie lost the war in 3 months. Their fleet was destroyed. Their cities were occupied. And when they begged the Galactic Council for mercy, the Council turned its back on them. Saravel grew up in the ruins. She learned to hide from pirates. She learned to ration food that was never enough. She watched her friends disappear, taken by slavers who knew that no one would come looking for them. She buried her mother when she was 16. Killed by a disease that could have been cured with medicine the galaxy refused to provide by the time she was 25. Saravel had accepted that her people were going to die. Not quickly, but slowly. Generation by generation. The galaxy had decided they were not worth saving. Nothing would change that. Then the humans came. She remembered the first time she saw one. A tall creature with pale skin and strange round eyes. He had arrived on a battered cargo ship that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. He said his name was David Chen, and he had brought food. Saravel had not believed him. In her experience, no one gave anything without expecting something in return. But Chen asked for nothing. He simply unloaded his cargo, spent 3 days helping distribute supplies, and then left with a promise to return. He kept that promise. Again and again, for 12 years, the humans kept coming. They brought food. They brought medicine. They brought teachers and doctors and engineers who wanted nothing more than to help. And when the pirates came hunting, the humans brought warships. Now Saravel stood outside the Galactic Council chamber, waiting to speak to the same powers that had condemned her people to death. She was terrified. Her hands were shaking. But she had been given 10 minutes to change the fate of her entire species. She would not waste them. A door opened, and a Korath officer approached her. Saravel recognized him from the descriptions in Ambassador Chin's briefing. Commander Vethril. The patrol officer who had witnessed the vigil protecting the refugee convoy. He was supposed to escort her to the chamber. She expected hostility from him. After all, his government was responsible for the war that had destroyed her people. But when their eyes met, she saw something unexpected. Shame, Vethril said quietly. The council is ready for you. They walked together through long corridors filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Some stared at Saravel with curiosity. Others looked away as if she carried a disease. She kept her head high and her eyes forward. The council chamber was even larger than she had imagined. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform. Every seat was filled. Every eye was watching her. Saravel walked to the center of the platform and waited. The chairman called for silence. The council recognizes the Valkyrie representative. You have 10 minutes to speak. Saravel took a deep breath. Her voice was steady when she began. 30 years ago, my people lost a war. We were not invaders. We were not conquerors. We fought to defend our borders against those who wanted to take our resources. We lost. And because we lost, you decided we no longer mattered. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who quickly looked away. I did not come here to beg for your mercy. I did not come here to ask for justice. After 30 years, I have learned that this council does not believe in mercy or justice. It believes only in power. And my people have no power. A murmur ran through the audience. Some delegates looked offended. Others looked uncomfortable. Saravel continued, I came here to tell you about the humans. The chamber fell silent. 12 years ago, a human cargo captain found our dying colony. His name was David Chin. He was supposed to be delivering supplies to a mining station. But his navigation system malfunctioned, and he ended up in our sector instead. She paused. Remembering that day, Captain Chen could have left. We were strangers to him. We were condemned by galactic law. Helping us would have put him at risk. But when he saw our children starving, he did not calculate the cost. He did not consider the political consequences. He simply opened his cargo hold and gave us everything he had. Saravel's voice grew stronger. He returned 3 months later with more supplies. And 3 months after that, and again, and again. Soon other humans joined him. Doctors who learned our language just so they could explain treatments to frightened patients. Teachers who crossed the galaxy just to help our children learn to read. Engineers who spent their own money to repair our broken equipment. She took a step forward. I asked one of them once why they were doing this. She was a nurse named Maria. She had given up a comfortable life on Earth to live in our ruined colony and treat diseases she had never seen before. I asked her what she was getting out of this arrangement. Do you know what she said? The chamber was completely silent. She said she was not getting anything. She said that where she came from, helping people was not a transaction. It was simply what good people did. Saravel felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. The humans did not save us with warships. They saved us with kindness. The warships came later, when pirates realized we were under human protection and decided to test their resolve. The humans built a navy to protect strangers. They trained soldiers to die for people they had never met. They risked war with your precious council for the crime of believing that every life has value. She turned to face the chairman directly. Call yourselves the Galactic Council. You speak of law and order and civilization. You build great ships and great cities and congratulate yourselves on how advanced you are. But when my people were dying, you looked away. When my children were being taken by slavers, you wrote laws that made it legal. When we had nothing and no one, you decided we were not your problem. Her voice rose. And when humans had nothing to gain and everything to lose, they came anyway. They came with food when we were hungry. They came with medicine when we were sick. They came with weapons when we were being hunted. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to help. Saravel looked around the chamber one last time. So I ask you, honored delegates of the Galactic Council, which of us truly represents civilization? The species that abandons the weak? Or the species that protects them? She fell silent. Her 10 minutes were over. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The chamber was filled with a silence heavier than any Saravel had ever known. Then something extraordinary happened. A delegate from a small species called the Telrani stood up. His voice was quiet but clear. My people have lived under the shadow of the major powers for generations. We have watched as the strong take from the weak. We have been told that this is the natural order of things. But today, I have heard a different truth, and I choose to believe it. He looked toward the human delegation. If the council moves against humanity, the Telani will stand with them. Act! Another delegate stood, then another, then another. One by one, representatives from minor species across the galaxy rose from their seats. Species that had been ignored, species that had been exploited, species that had watched the powerful abuse the powerless and wondered if anyone would ever fight back. 12 species, then 20, then 30-5. By the time the chairman called for order, over 50 delegations had pledged to support the humans. The major powers sat in stunned silence. They had expected to crush humanity with a simple vote. Instead, they had witnessed something no one had thought possible. The galaxy was changing, and Saravel had lit the spark. The council chamber had descended into chaos, and Commander Vethril watched it all from the gallery above. Delegates were shouting at each other. The chairman was pounding his speaking staff against the floor, demanding order. The major powers were furious. Over 50 minor species had just defied them openly. No one knew what to do about it. Vethril found himself watching the human delegation. Ambassador Chen stood calmly in the center of the storm, speaking quietly with her aides. She did not look triumphant. She did not look smug. If anything, she looked sad, as if she had hoped the council would prove her wrong and was disappointed that they had not. The chairman finally restored enough order to speak. His voice was cold and hard. This display changes nothing. The minor species may posture all they wish, but the reality of power remains unchanged. The blockade proposal will proceed. Human vessels will be intercepted at the border. The refugees will be surrendered. And if they refuse, Ambassador Chen asked quietly, then we will take them by force. Chen nodded slowly. I understand. And I want you to understand something as well. She stepped forward and addressed the entire chamber. We will not fire the first shot. That is not who we are. But I promise you this. If your ships attack our civilians, if your soldiers harm the people under our protection, we will respond. And when it is over, the galaxy will know exactly who started this war. History will remember. The chairman made a dismissive gesture. Human threats do not concern us. Your fleet is small. Your territory is limited. You cannot stand against the combined might of the council powers. Perhaps not, Chen admitted. But we will stand anyway. Because some things matter more than survival. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Her delegation followed. The gallery erupted into noise once again. Vethril sat in his seat, his mind racing. He had served the hegemony his entire life. He had believed in the council's authority. He had trusted that the major powers knew what was best for the galaxy. But everything he had witnessed in the past few days had shaken that faith to its core. The Valkyrie woman's words echoed in his mind. Which of us truly represents civilization? The species that abandons the weak? Or the species that protects them? He did not have an answer. He was not sure he wanted one. 3 days later, the blockade fleet assembled near the border of human space. 30 warships from 3 major powers. Enough firepower to devastate entire planets. Commander Vethril stood on the bridge of his patrol. Veslin watched the fleet take formation. He had been assigned to the blockade against his wishes. His request for reassignment had been denied. His superiors had made it clear that refusing orders would end his career. So here he was, preparing to threaten innocent people because his government had told him to. The fleet commander broadcast final orders. All vessels were to take position along the border. Any human ship attempting to cross would be intercepted and searched. Refugee vessels would be seized. Resistance would be met with force. Vethril listened to the orders and felt sick. Then the humans did something no one expected. Instead of mobilizing their military to meet the blockade, they opened their borders. Broadcast channels lit up with a single message, repeated on all frequencies. To all vessels in the region, this is Earth Command. We are aware of the blockade assembled at our border. We will not resist with weapons. Instead, we invite any neutral observers, journalists, or diplomatic missions to enter our space freely. Come and see what we are protecting. Come and witness whatever happens next. The blockade commanders hesitated. This was not the response they had planned for. They had expected human warships to line up for battle. They had expected threats and posturing. Instead, the humans had simply opened their doors and invited the galaxy to watch. Within hours, merchant vessels from neutral species, news crews from independent broadcast networks, diplomatic shuttles from the minor powers who had pledged to support humanity, even a few private yachts from wealthy citizens who wanted to see history unfold. The blockade fleet watched as the parade of vessels passed through their formation and entered human space. They could not legally stop neutral observers. They could not fire on diplomatic missions without starting a galactic incident. The humans had outmaneuvered them without launching a single weapon. Vethril. Some of them waved at his vessel through their viewing ports. Others broadcast messages of support for the humans. One small shuttle flew close enough that Vethril could see the pilot through the window. She was Velkari. The young woman pressed her hand against the glass and looked directly at him. There was no hatred in her eyes, no anger, only a question. What will you choose? Vethril turned away. He could not face her. Hours passed. The blockade held its position, but nothing happened. The humans did not attack. They did not provoke. They simply waited, surrounded by witnesses from across the galaxy. Finally, Ambassador Chen broadcast a message to the blockade fleet. Her voice was calm and clear. To the commanders of the blockade force, I want you to understand something. We will not fire the first shot. We will not abandon the people under our protection. Whatever happens next is your choice, not ours. But know this. The galaxy is watching. History is watching. And someday your children and grandchildren will ask you what you did when civilization hung in the balance. Choose wisely. The message ended. Silence fell across the fleet. Vethril looked at the faces of his crew. They were frightened. They were confused. They were waiting for him to tell them what to do. He thought about everything he had seen. The refugee convoy fleeing from pirates. The vigil standing guard over strangers. Saravel speaking truth to power. Ambassador Chen inviting the galaxy to witness whatever came next. And he thought about the Velkari, pilot pressing her hand against the glass. What will you choose? Vethril walked to the communications console. His hands were steady as he opened a broadcast channel. This is Commander Vethril of the Galactic Patrol. I am transmitting my resignation from service, effective immediately. His crew stared at him in shock. His second-in-command, Kyranus, stepped forward with anger in her eyes. What are you doing? This is treason. Perhaps, Vethril said quietly, but I will not be remembered as someone who stood by while innocent people were attacked. I will not explain to my grandchildren that I was just following orders. He turned back to the console. I am taking my ship across the border. Not to fight, but to stand witness. Anyone who wishes to join me is welcome. Anyone who wishes to remain may do so, but I will not be part of this blockade any longer. He walked to the helm controls and began entering a new course. Behind him, he heard movement. When he turned, he saw half his crew standing with him. The others remained at their stations uncertain. Kyranus stared at him with something between fury and respect. You are throwing away everything. No, Vethril replied. I am finally choosing what matters. He engaged the engines. His patrol ship broke formation and headed toward the human border. Behind him, 3 other vessels followed. Then 7. Then 12. One by one, ships from minor species, merchant vessels. And even a few patrol craft from other fleets began to break away. They were not attacking the blockade. They were simply leaving. Walking away from a fight they no longer believed in, the blockade commanders watched in disbelief as their formation crumbled. They could have opened fire. They could have destroyed the departing vessels. But with the entire galaxy watching, they hesitated. And in that hesitation, the moment slipped away. By the end of the day, blockade had lost nearly a third of its strength to defections and departures. The remaining ships held position, but everyone knew the truth. The Council had lost. Not through battle, not through superior firepower, but through something far more powerful. They had lost because the humans had shown the galaxy what courage looked like, and the galaxy had chosen to follow. The blockade collapsed 3 days later. Not with explosions or battles, but with quiet surrender. The Council's ultimatum was withdrawn. The major powers blamed each other for the failure, and across the galaxy, people began to whisper about what they had witnessed. Humans had faced the combined might of the Council powers and had not blinked. They had won without firing a single shot. They had changed everything simply by refusing to abandon their principles. Vethril crossed into human space on a gray morning, 6 months after the blockade dissolved. His old uniform hung in a closet somewhere on his home world. He no longer wore it. He no longer needed it. He had spent the past months helping other defectors find their way. Officers who had broken ranks, crew members who had refused orders, citizens from Council species who had watched the blockade and decided they wanted to be part of something different. There were thousands of them now. Thousands who had chosen conscience over convenience. The humans had welcomed them all. Vethril S. Shuttle approached a space station, orbiting a small planet near the human border. The station was new. It had been built in the months following the blockade, a joint project between humans and Velkari. They called it Haven Station, a place where refugees could find safety, a place where the abandoned could find hope. He docked his shuttle and stepped onto the station. The corridors were filled with people from dozens of species. Velkari walked beside humans. Tellarani merchants traded with Rethoni artisans. A group of children ran past him, laughing, their voices mixing languages from across the galaxy. Vethril had never seen anything like it. He found his way to the observation deck on the upper level. Large windows looked out over the planet below. It was a garden world, green and blue, covered with forests and oceans. The humans had named it Sanctuary. A familiar figure stood near the window. Saravel, the Velkari woman who had spoken before the Council, was watching a shuttle descend toward the surface. She turned when she heard his footsteps. "Commander," she said. "Or should I use a different title now?" "Just Vethril," he replied. "I am no longer a commander of anything." She smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile. "That is not true. You command great respect among your people, the ones who followed you. They speak of you as a hero." Vethril shook his head. "I am no hero. I simply could not be part of something wrong anymore. The real heroes are the humans. They are the ones who started all of this." Perhaps Saravel said, "But they would say the same thing about you, about all of us." That is one of the strange things about humans. They do not believe in heroes. They believe that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose to care. They stood together in silence, watching the planet turn slowly below them. "How many refugees have come through this station?" Vethril asked. "Thousands," Saravel replied. "Velkari, of course, but also others. Species that were abandoned. People that were forgotten. They come here because they have heard that someone will help them. And do you help them?" She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "We try. It is not easy. We do not have enough ships. We do not have enough supplies. We do not have enough of anything, really. But we try anyway. Because that is what we learned from the humans. You do not wait until you have enough. You start with what you have. And somehow, More always comes. A door opened behind them. Vethril turned to see Ambassador Chen entering the observation deck. She looked tired, but peaceful. Her gray hair was longer now, tied back in a simple style. She nodded to both of them and joined them at the window. "I heard you arrived this morning," Chen said to Vethril. "Welcome to Haven Station. I hope you will stay." "I would like that," Vethril replied. "If you will have me, you will have anyone who wants to help," Chen said simply. "That is the whole point of this place. It does not matter where you came from. It does not matter what species you are. It only matters what you choose to do now." She paused, looking out at the planet below. "Next month, we are launching a new initiative. The Allied Worlds Compact. It will be a coalition of species that believe in a simple idea. No one stands alone. If you are threatened, we will help you. If you are suffering, we will come. Not because of treaties or trade agreements, but because it is the right thing to do." Vethril felt something stir in his chest. Hope, perhaps. Or purpose. He had spent so long serving a government that did not believe in anything except power. Now he had a chance to serve something better. "I would like to be part of that," he said. Chen smiled. "Good. We need people like you. People who know the old ways but are willing to build something new." She turned and walked toward the door. Before she left, she paused and looked back. "Tomorrow, there is a ceremony on the surface. A memorial for the Valkyrie dead. You should come. It might help you understand why we do this." Vethril and Saraval remained at the window. The next day, Vethril descended to the surface of Sanctuary. The memorial was located in a valley surrounded by mountains. It was a garden filled with trees that Saraval told him were sacred to her people. Each tree represented a colony that had been lost, a life that had ended, a story that would never be told. Hundreds of people gathered in the garden. Humans, Valkyrie, members of the new coalition. They stood together in silence as names were read aloud. Thousands of names. Millions of names. The dead who would never be forgotten. Vethril stood at the edge of the gathering and watched. He saw Saraval place flowers at the base of a tree. Her mother's tree, perhaps. Her friends. Her neighbors. All the people she had lost. When the ceremony ended, the crowd began to scatter. Some lingered to speak with each other. Others walked among the trees, touching the bark, whispering prayers. Vethril found himself drawn to a quiet corner of the garden where an old human sat alone on a bench. The man was watching a group of children play nearby. Human children and Valkyrie children, chasing each other through the grass, laughing without a care in the world. Something about the old man seemed familiar. Vethril approached and realized who he was looking at. "You're David Chen," he said. "The cargo captain. The one who found the Valkyrie." The old man looked up and smiled. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were kind. "That was a long time ago," Chen said. "I am retired now. I just came to see the trees one more time." Vethril sat down beside him. For a while, they watched the children play in silence. "May I ask you something?" Vethril said eventually. "Of course. Why did you do it? When you found those refugees all those years ago, you could have left. You could have reported them and moved on. No one would have blamed you. Why did you risk everything to help strangers?" David Chen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because I looked at them and saw my own people. Saw my own children. Saw my own mother." Paused. "Where I come from, we have an old saying. When you see someone drowning, you do not ask what country they are from. You just pull them out of the water." Shrugged, as if the answer was obvious. "They were drowning. So I pulled them out. That is all there is to it, really." Vethril thought about those words. Such simple reasoning. Such basic compassion. And yet it had changed everything. Was it enough? Vethril asked. "Everything you did. Everything you sacrificed. Was it worth it?" Chen smiled and gestured toward the children playing in the grass. Human and Valkyrie together. A future that should not have existed. "Look at them," he said. "Look at what we built. Not with weapons. Not with treaties. just with kindness, one day at a time. He turned to Vethril, his old eyes shining. Yes, it was worth it. Every single moment, Vethril watched the children laugh and play. He thought about all the choices that had led to this moment. All the small acts of courage, all the ordinary people who had decided to do extraordinary things. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had not forced anyone to change. They had simply shown a different way to live. And one by one, the galaxy had followed. That was humanity's gift to the universe. Not technology, not weapons, not power, just the simple belief that every life mattered, and the courage to act on it. Vithril sat in the garden as the sun set over Sanctuary. The children's laughter echoed through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a Valkyrie song drifted on the wind. For the first time in 30 years, Commander Vethril felt at peace. He had finally found something worth believing in.